Rohingya was a forbidden word, and the community was termed as Kalar or Bengali. Genocide is not an event but a process, which is very much true in case of Myanmar. The state of Myanmar forcibly displaced the Rohingya people into the territory of Bangladesh. Resettlement in their home at Rakhine State can be used to create a new economic zone with foreign investment and support. Maybe the doors will not be wide open for them to return, but they need to grab whatever opportunity will be created and continue the struggle in their homeland for their own rights. Good morning to all of you all. We start saying good morning, but this is a day which reminds us of the tragic events that unfolded 6 years ago in our neighboring Myanmar. And I feel honored and privileged that I have been invited by the Center for Genocide Studies to deliver the keynote speech on genocide and justice, Bangladesh's response to Rohingya crisis. Without much ado, I will read out my presentation. 26 August 2023 is the day of 6th anniversary of the eruption of Rohingya crisis, when wave after wave of persecuted, tortured, haunted people of Myanmar started to cross the border to enter Bangladesh to save their life. The exodus swelled the number of refugees in quick time to cross the figure of 1 million, proving to be a huge challenge to the host country and the international community. After 6 years, it is a time to evaluate the works done so far, the path traversed, and the challenges that lie ahead. The ultimate aim of the refugee crisis is to ensure their safe and secure return to their homeland, to rehabilitate them with security and sustainability so that they can rebuild their life in their own way. At the same time, it is essential to ensure justice for the atrocity crimes committed and learn the lessons of history. Persecution of Rohingya people and their forceful eviction to Bangladesh is a crisis of such magnitude that no single paper can address various challenges and pitfalls of the crisis. Instead, we can highlight the fundamental trends from the perspective of Bangladesh, which also involves international community as partner in the process. If we take an overview, we cannot help but recognize the exemplary role Bangladesh played in embracing the persecuted people from the neighboring Myanmar. From the very first day, Bangladesh opened its border to tortured and damned people seeking shelter in their territory. This has helped the world to avoid a catastrophe that could give rise to an ocean of blood. It was not an easy decision for the nation, which itself had to struggle hard to meet the demands of everyday life. Immediately, in early September, Prime Minister ⵛৃឆৃ visited the makeshift camps to stand by the forcibly displaced citizens of Myanmar and was visibly moved by the brutalities unleashed upon the ordinary people. On 20th September 2017, she delivered an emotion-choked speech at the UN General Assembly where she remembered the genocide unleashed upon our people in 1971. She also recalled her life as refugee for 6 years after the brutal killing of father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, in August 1975. She said, I quote, I have came here just after seeing the hungry, distressed and hopeless Rohingyas from Myanmar who took shelter in Cox's Bazar. Hundreds and thousands of Rohingyas from the Rakhine state of Myanmar are entering Bangladesh to flee violence. As estimated by IOM, in last 3 weeks, over 430,000 Rohingya entered Bangladesh. These people must be able to return to their homeland in safety, security, and dignity, unquote. Today, we should not forget the first days, weeks, and months of the crisis when thousands and thousands of people crossed into Bangladesh, and overnight the facilities had to be made to provide them shelter, food, and essential services. It was the people and the government of Bangladesh who were at the front line to receive the refugees, and international community joined later on. Gradually, the support system for the Rohingya refugees got better organized with the partnership among Bangladesh government, United Nations agencies, INGOs, donor group, and local NGOs. Food, medical, sanitation, drinking water, and educational facilities got organized with allocation of resources and responsibilities. But life in a refugee camp is always a camp life, and nothing can erase the trauma and tribulation of such miserable life. The tension and sufferings of camp life also takes its toll. Apparently, the camp looks stagnant, but underneath this calm, there are brewing frustration and anger, which may explode in one way or other. Radicalization, human trafficking, drug trade, violence against women, etc. are eroding the social fabric of camp dwellers and may reach the critical point any time in the future. To host more than 1 million displaced persons in a limited space is a huge challenge. But even in the cramped habitat of the camps, the situation shows signs of improvement. There are success stories like Elephant Response Team, running of schools and learning centers, sowing new samplings to provide green coverage in the camps, etc. Comparatively speaking, the situation in the Rohingya camps are different from refugee camps elsewhere. Here I would like to quote from the recent book titled The Will to See, written by French philosopher activist Bernard-Henri Lévy. In 2020, he visited the Rohingya camps and wrote, quote, "I arrived just days after visiting Moria in the Greek island of Lesbos. It is here in the 34 camps in Cox's Bazar, NGOs operate more freely. Here that one finds adequate supply of soap, towels, toothbrushes, and water dispensers. Here, after the initial few weeks of chaos, as survivors of massacres strip the hills of wood in an effort to warm themselves, great bamboo walkways were built to connect parts of what has almost become a city. Here, more than a semblance of life has been established, with paved paths, clean huts, and even tiny kitchen garden that enable families to pursue the subsistence agriculture they practiced at home in Burma." Unquote. In the same book, there is a chapter on Lesbos, the island camp for about 19,000 refugees from the continent of Africa. For water, everybody had to stand in long line, wrote BHL, quote, 50-odd women are lined up in single file. And in fact, I see no jerry cans. Each woman clutches her plastic bottle, sometimes 2 or 3 bottles, if they are part of a family and can prove it. But the worst are the latrines, unquote. At the end, the philosopher activist made an appeal, quote, 500 million Europeans live in 27 nations to whom I propose to add 19,000 suffering souls. A drop of water in the ocean of our prosperity. The Greeks have a symbol for that, epsilon, unquote. This is not only a comparison between the reality of 2 refugee camps in 2 different hemispheres. More than that, it also reflects north-south divergence in perspective and practice. Even though Bangladesh is playing a commendable role in hosting the large community of refugees, there are criticisms of Bangladesh for not being a signatory of the UN Refugee Convention of 1951. Apart from Afghanistan, no other South Asian countries has signed the Refugee Convention, which is considered to be too Eurocentric. Nevertheless, Bangladesh adheres to the principles of 1951 Convention. Bangladesh is now one of the major refugee hosting countries of the world with viable working relation with the UNHCR. Bangladesh Supreme Court, in a case involving Myanmar national, has recently delivered its verdict that, quote, though Bangladesh has not formally ratified the convention, this convention by now has become a part of customary international law, which is binding upon all countries of the world, irrespective of whether a particular country has formally signed, acceded, or ratified the convention, unquote. Naureen Rahim, research volunteer of the Liberation War Museum, now a PhD candidate in the Faculty of Law of University of Oslo, has observed in a recent post of her in Refugee Law Initiative of SOAS UK that, quote, Bangladesh, despite being a non-signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention, has in several ways tried to uphold the refugee norms so far. Bangladesh refugee policies and narratives are excellent areas in which to analyze non-signatory states' involvement in the international refugee regime, unquote. Among the 28 million refugees in the world today, near about 85% of them are hosted in low and middle-income countries. Kutupalong, Cox's Bazar is the largest refugee camp in the world, and Bangladesh is one of the world's major refugee hosting countries. But there are criticisms of Bangladesh as it has not officially endorsed the Refugee Convention. While the signatory nations are closing their windows to the refugees and let them die in the Mediterranean Sea, Bangladesh has opened its door to 1 million refugees. Another bone of contention is Bhashanchar. There was a strong criticism of Bhashanchar project of the government of Bangladesh when it was first presented before the international community. Global media, donor agencies, INGOs, and Rohingya diaspora abroad failed to understand the Bhashanchar concept, which is an indigenous idea conceived and implemented by Bangladesh on her own. An innovative concept from Global South caused apprehension of many from Global North, who expressed their disapproval unequivocally. Mong Journey, a spokesperson of the diaspora, termed Bhashanchar as a prison island, without studying the proposal or making an effort to visit the island. UN agencies were also critical about the practicality of refugee resettlement in Bhashanchar. Bangladesh took a positive step of persuasion and negotiation. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in collaboration with the Office of the RRRC Cox's Bazar, arranged several field trips of the stakeholders to Bhashanchar, where the Rohingya refugees voluntarily went for resettlement. Bhashanchar settlement program is a very comprehensive one that needs to be studied by the aid workers for many of its innovative features. Ultimately, good sense prevailed, and Bhashanchar got support of various organizations working in the camp. In October 2021, a MOU was signed between Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief and the UNHCR, opening the path of close cooperation on services and activities for the benefit of refugees in the island. As per plan, if 100,000 refugees could be resettled in Bhashanchar, that could bring a big relief in the camps, easing the burden. The issue of justice is at the core of international community's effort to confront genocidal brutality. While providing food, shelter, and support to the refugees are the prime duty of humanity, the issue of justice remains a strong component of such effort. There should not be any impunity for the perpetrators of crimes committed against humanity. Genocide is not an event but a process, which is very much true in case of Myanmar. But the global politics and economy, national interest of major powers has put hurdles in the path to solution. UN Security Council has not made any referral for justice for the crimes of Myanmar. In spite of that, justice scenario gradually changed, and we have seen developments that promoted the cause of justice both in a formal and informal way. Fact-finding mission was created by UN Human Rights Council to look at human rights violations in Myanmar since 2011. Fact-finding Commission or FFM report was published in 2018 with 444 pages. A follow-up report published in 2018 exposed the business ties of Myanmar military with the multinational corporations. The report accused that Tatmadaw committed genocide against Rohingya in the Rakhine state. Unfortunately, this report has not received due attention of the policymakers. As the mandate of FMM ended, Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, IIMM, was formed in August 2019. UN established IIMM with the mandate to prepare files to serve criminal proceedings in accordance with international law for any future trial has wider significance. IIMM is continuing its effort of collecting and processing evidence and is being supported by the government and various civil society organizations. Liberation War Museum and its Center for the Study of Genocide and Justice has made humble contribution to IIMM, with its collection of testimony of Rohingya women victims and other documents. To take up the case of Rohingya genocide to the International Criminal Court, ICC, and International Court of Justice, ICJ, was not an easy task. Bangladesh has endorsed the Rome Statute in 2010, thereby accepted the jurisdiction of ICC. As Myanmar is not a member of the ICC, the court cannot exercise its jurisdiction over the state of Myanmar. But in 2018, ICC prosecutors, following a submission by CSOs of Bangladesh, argued that the state of Myanmar forcibly displaced the Rohingya people into the territory of Bangladesh, and as such, part of Bangladesh became the place of occurrence of atrocity crimes. As Bangladesh is a state party to the Rome Statute, ICC can take up the case of deportation committed against the Rohingya. In November 2019, ICC judges accepted the case to include other crimes also, and the prosecutors started their formal investigation. ICC will try individuals most responsible for the atrocity crimes, but prosecutors need time to prepare the cases against those persons. ICJ, International Court of Justice, has the mandate to settle disputes between two or more countries. Myanmar is a state party to the Genocide Convention, so is the Gambia. Gambia, as another state party to Genocide Convention, filed the case against Myanmar for violating obligations under Genocide Convention on 11 November 2019. An initial hearing took place at the ICJ in The Hague on 10 to 12 December 2019 to discuss issues of jurisdiction and provisional measures. On 23 January 2020, ICC judges unanimously issued order to Myanmar to implement certain provisional measures, thereby recognizing the merit of the case. The two cases in the two international courts to try the perpetrators of atrocity crimes in Myanmar are positive development. At the same time, one must take note that legal battles in the international courts will take years to settle. But the activation of process of trial is a moral victory for victims and human rights defenders. Gambia, a small African country, has taken the bold step on behalf of the global community and is backed by the Organization of Islamic Conference as well as Bangladesh. It is expected that countries which proclaim themselves as defenders of human rights, like Canada, the Netherlands, the seat of the court, Germany, Sweden, and others, will join OIC in support of the case. Nothing happened so far in this regard, but Bangladesh and Rohingya diaspora has to make a strong lobby to persuade other states to render their support to Gambia in the case of Myanmar's state responsibility of Rohingya genocide. In conclusion, we can take a critical look at where we stand now, 6 years after the mass exodus of persecuted Rohingya of Myanmar. We do not see any light at the end of the tunnel, but there are flickers of hope and positive trends which demand more attention and support. The situation was totally bleak 6 years ago when Tatmadaw and the political leadership under Aung San Suu Kyi jointly launched their attack to achieve the final solution of the Rohingya problem. The ethnic Rohingya community was denied not only of their citizenship, but even of their own identity. Rohingya was a forbidden word, and the community was termed as Kalar or Bengali. Now the world has recognized the Rohingya ethnic identity, and Myanmar had to acknowledge that. The political and military alliance in Myanmar cracked with the coup d'etat of February 2021. The democratic opposition formed the National Unity Government, and NUG in its position paper has acknowledged the violence inflicted upon the Rohingya community and called for a new constitution recognizing the ethnic diversity that includes the Rohingya. Situation inside the Rakhine state changed with the Arakan army establishing their control over vast areas, and they recognized the multi-ethnic reality of the land. Bangladesh, taking a holistic approach, has kept all windows of opportunity open, including bilateral negotiation with Myanmar government. This has drawn criticism from many quarters. Bilateral negotiation with authority in Myanmar is necessary to explore the possibilities to move forward. This does not close UN-sponsored negotiation or other tripartite or multilateral effort. The emergence of NUG or Arakan Army has also given rise to the necessity of non-formal discussion and understanding. The bilateral negotiation between Bangladesh and Myanmar, backed by China, has not achieved any visible progress. Interestingly, the last meeting was followed up by a delegation from Bangladesh visiting the rehabilitation facilities in Myanmar. Apart from Bangladesh officials, UNHCR representatives and members of the Rohingya community was part of the delegation. Myanmar has accepted the delegation but did not respond with any meaningful gesture. The tripartite delegation also had mixed observation. Nevertheless, the combination of Bangladesh, UN agencies and Rohingya community is essential for any meaningful effort to establish the right of the displaced Rohingya to return to their homeland. To ensure safe, secure and dignified return, international monitoring and global assistance in the process is fundamental. Bangladesh, with cooperation of UN agencies and support of other governments, has managed the crisis of refugee settlement so far, but it cannot go on for long. Solution is urgently needed, otherwise situation with 1.2 million refugees will become complex and volatile. The key to any progress in the return of Rohingya to their homeland is in the hands of global leadership. Rohingya must return with the recognition of their citizenship right, but such return must be sustainable and economically prospective. Resettlement in their home at Rakhine State can be used to create a new economic zone with foreign investment and support. The Rohingya in the camps has got educational opportunity. The universal primary education is being provided for all and now is extended up to 8-year school following Myanmar curriculum. The educational facilities of the camps should follow the returnees to ensure their continuous learning. The women in the camps got the opportunity to confront the wider world. They were oppressed in their own community in Rakhine State, mostly confined at their home state. Facing the challenges of life in the camp, they have shown new vigor and strength. The youths, if given the opportunity, can be more skilled and adaptive. Different programs introduced in the camps showed this possibility. Along with the economic investment on the return of Rohingya to their homeland, there must be disinvestment in Myanmar. Economic sanction on Myanmar is the call of the day. US Security Council and Global Business Forum has the responsibility to take drastic action. Economic sanction and boycott of Myanmar products will give a strong message to Tatmadaw. The authoritarian rule has not given the people of Myanmar any benefit. Sanctions at this stage will not hurt the people but the military oligarchy. The Rohingya refugee community leadership in the camps need more attention from the government, CSOs and people of Bangladesh. It is necessary to give hope to the hopeless people. The positive developments in the justice arena are indicators of progress and put an unofficial embargo on the military generals. Changes inside Myanmar, the struggle of other ethnic groups, as well as democratic movement, calls for an alliance for a diverse, tolerant and democratic Myanmar. The refugees should be aware of the justice process and FMM and IIMM. They should be aware of their rights and obligations. Most importantly, they should be able to contribute effectively in the negotiation and the struggle ahead. Maybe the doors will not be wide open for them to return, but they need to grab whatever opportunity will be created and continue the struggle in their homeland for their own right. International community should be with them in their long journey to establish their rights. It is important to ensure that the support system in the camps will be with them in the northern Rakhine State after their return to home. 6 years after the eruption of Rohingya crisis, we do not see any progress towards solution of the problem, but the changes give us new hope. Solution is possible, and a holistic and concerted effort of Bangladesh, UN Security Council, global partners, Rohingya victims, UN agencies, democratic forces inside Myanmar, and Global Economic Forum can pave the way forward. It is possible and should be done, and done now, not later. Thank you for listening.